Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone. Here's the paradox no one warned you about. The very thing that makes you capable of deep love is the same thing that makes some people walk away from you. Your kindness, you have felt this. You answered the text. You communicated clearly. You showed up on time. You asked about their childhood, their fears, their dreams. You listened. You remembered. You cared, and somehow it felt like you lost leverage. Suddenly the energy shifted. They pulled back. They became vague. They started chasing mystery instead of warmth. And you were left wondering, did I do too much? Was I too available? Should I have played it cooler? In a dating culture that rewards detachment, emotional distance can look powerful and presence can look desperate. But here's the deeper truth. Kindness is not weakness. But in a world terrified of vulnerability, it can feel threatening. And today, we're going to unpack why. Modern dating is not just about chemistry. It's about nervous systems. It's about attachment patterns. It's about who feels safe with intimacy and who mistakes safety for boredom. Emotional intelligence, self-awareness, empathy, regulation is one of the strongest predictors of long-term relationship success. Research consistently shows that couples who can identify and communicate emotions build deeper bonds and greater satisfaction. And yet, in the early stages of dating, emotional intelligence can be misread. Why? Because vulnerability requires courage, and not everyone you meet is ready for courage. When you are kind, emotionally present, and clear, you remove the ambiguity that many people unconsciously rely on for control. You disrupt the game. You say, I like you. You say, I value communication. You say, I'm looking for something meaningful. And to someone who equates uncertainty with excitement, that steadiness can feel like weakness. But it isn't weakness. It's regulation. And there's a profound difference. You have seen it. The person who texts back hours later. Who reveals just enough? Who keeps you slightly off balance? Who never seems too invested? And somehow they feel powerful. Why? Because uncertainty activates the brain's reward system. Intermittent reinforcement, the unpredictable reward pattern also used in gambling, creates dopamine spikes. The less predictable someone is, the more the brain chases the reward. Mystery becomes mistaken for value. So when you show up consistently, when you are warm, attentive, and emotionally available, you remove the uncertainty. You create safety. And safety, to someone conditioned to chaos, feels unfamiliar. You have felt this, haven't you? You were open. You expressed interest clearly. You didn't pretend you were indifferent. And suddenly, you felt like the one with less power. But here's what's really happening. When someone confuses detachment with strength, they are often operating from protection. Distance feels safer than closeness. Ambiguity feels safer than commitment. Control feels safer than connection. Your kindness disrupts that strategy. Because kindness says, I am here. I am steady. I am not playing. And for someone who learned that intimacy equals risk, that steadiness feels destabilizing. So they retreat, not because you are weak, but because you are emotionally fluent in a language they haven't learned yet. You have been told, directly or indirectly, that softness reduces attraction. Don't text first. Don't show too much interest. Make them chase. But let's look at what softness actually requires. To be kind in modern dating means you risk rejection. You risk being misunderstood. You risk being seen. That is not weakness. That is vulnerability. And vulnerability is exposure without control over the outcome. When you choose kindness, you are saying, I will not shrink myself to manipulate your perception. I will not withhold warmth to manufacture desire. I will not trade authenticity for strategy that takes emotional courage. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Kindness without boundaries can look like self-abandonment. And this is where the confusion begins. There is a difference between kindness rooted in self-worth and kindness rooted in fear of losing someone. You have felt the difference. One version feels grounded, the other feels anxious. When your kindness is an offering, this is who I am, it is strength. When your kindness is a negotiation, please don't leave. It can feel unstable. And modern dating is incredibly sensitive to instability. Not because people are cruel, but because most of us are hyper attuned to cues of insecurity. So the real question isn't, is kindness weak? The real question is your kindness anchored? Because anchored kindness is powerful. It says, I care deeply, and I will walk away if I'm not met with care. That is not weakness. That is secure attachment in action. And in a culture addicted to emotional games, security can feel revolutionary. You've noticed it. The moment you express warmth, clarity, or honesty, some people pull back. They deflect. They tease. They test you. It's not about you. It's about them. Your kindness acts like a mirror. It reflects what they are not ready to face, their own fear of vulnerability, their discomfort with genuine connection, their habit of equating attention with weakness. You have felt this sting when someone responds to your emotional availability with detachment. It's confusing, it's painful, and it makes you question yourself. But the mirror effect is actually a gift. It tells you exactly who is capable of meeting you at your level and who is still running from their own emotional truth. Kindness doesn't just expose their insecurity, it also exposes yours. You see, you might start doubting your value. Am I too much? Am I naive? And here's the truth you need to hold close. You are not too much. You are simply unwilling to play the games that others have been trained to value. Your emotional courage is a magnet for connection and a repellent for chaos. Here's where most people get it wrong. They think kindness means no boundaries. It doesn't. Kindness is not giving yourself away. Kindness is not tolerating behavior that diminishes your worth. Kindness is not a free pass for someone else's emotional immaturity. Imagine your kindness as gold. If you pour it into a cracked cup, it leaks. If you pour it into a container that cannot hold it, it is wasted. Boundaries are the cup. They define the space in which your kindness can flow safely without being exploited or devalued. You have felt that too, haven't you? When you finally say, I will not tolerate this behavior, and the person resists or complains, it's because they were comfortable with the old, undefined version of you. the version who tolerated uncertainty, inconsistency, or disregard. Now that you are anchored, kind, present, yet unwavering, they see a strength they may not recognize. Kindness and boundaries are not opposites. They are alchemy. When combined, they create the magnetic power of someone who is both tender and unshakable. And this is the paradox of modern dating. The people who truly deserve your kindness will recognize it as strength. The people who confuse your warmth for weakness will eventually drift away. And that is exactly as it should be. By now, you've begun to notice that not everyone responds to kindness the same way. Some people shrink back, some lean in, some seem to float somewhere in between, testing boundaries in subtle ways. The truth is, your kindness acts like a detector. It tells you who is ready for intimacy and who isn't. When someone truly values your kindness, it shows in the small, almost imperceptible moments. They remember the little things you say, the stories you share, the dreams you whisper in a quiet moment. They don't just hear your words, they carry them as if they are sacred. You have felt that sensation, the lightness of being seen, the relief of knowing your attention and care matter. It's not just about them being polite. It's about them being present. They reflect your emotional energy. When you are vulnerable, they don't recoil, they lean in, they mirror your steadiness with their own. You experience the difference between someone who deflects your openness and someone who meets it with authenticity. One makes you question yourself, the other makes you feel safe, alive, and understood. You can sense when they respect your boundaries without you needing to enforce them with drama. They don't test you with manipulations or mind games. They don't see your generosity as an opportunity to exploit or control. Instead, they rise to meet it. That's the hallmark of emotional fluency. They recognize your kindness not as weakness, but as a language of strength, a kind of courage that is rare and profoundly magnetic. You felt that too, haven't you? The weightlessness of connection when someone leans into your warmth instead of recoiling from it. The subtle thrill of intimacy that doesn't require pretense or strategy, where both of you can exist fully without fear of rejection because your kindness is acknowledged, not weaponized. That feeling, that quiet, steady, grounding presence is the signature of someone who sees your strength. And that realization can be life-changing because it redefines the way you view yourself in love, not as someone who gives too much, but as someone who is unapologetically capable of depth and empathy and connection. Let's pause and consider something most people never tell you. What the world labels as weakness in dating is always courage wearing an unfamiliar face. When you express care openly, when you say exactly what you feel, when you lean into connection instead of hiding behind games, then you are performing an act so radical that it can feel dangerous in a culture addicted to uncertainty. You have been trained to see vulnerability as risk, kindness as naivety, and emotional openness as a form of powerlessness. But here's the truth that hits harder than any rejection ever could: being tender, present, and authentic requires a strength most people don't even know they possess. You are willing to expose your heart without knowing the outcome. You are willing to speak honestly and without twisting the truth to manipulate attention. You are willing to love without bartering for affection or validation. That is power. That is bravery. That is radical emotional intelligence. And yet, the moment you demonstrate this kind of grounded kindness, some people will misunderstand it. They will confuse your clarity with desperation, your consistency with weakness, your willingness to engage deeply with them as a sign that you are easily swayed. But this is not about them. It is about the armor they have learned to wear, their fear of vulnerability, their discomfort with being fully seen, their learned association of affection with manipulation. All of it creates a distortion in how they perceive your kindness. You have felt it before, haven't you? The sting of being misunderstood, the dissonance between how much care you offered and how little it was received. And in those moments, it is tempting to question your own worth. Am I too much? Am I naive? Should I have played the game? But here's the radical truth. Your kindness is not the problem. Your courage to be kind is your power. The people who can meet you at your level, those who recognize your generosity of spirit and your emotional presence, will not run from it. They will not see it as weakness. They will lean in. They will reciprocate. And that's the measure of alignment. That's the measure of someone who is ready to walk with you in your truth. So the question isn't whether kindness is weak. The question is whether your kindness is anchored when your compassion, your attentiveness, and your openness are rooted in self-respect and self-awareness. They become an unshakable force. You are no longer bending to the fear of being unliked. You are no longer negotiating your worth in the currency of someone else's insecurity. You are standing in your own value. And that, more than anything, is magnetic, powerful, and revolutionary in modern dating. Finally, let's speak about the kind of kindness that doesn't cost you yourself, the kind that allows you to love without losing your center. There is a misconception that to be kind is to sacrifice your needs, to bend until you break, or to tolerate behavior that erodes your sense of self. That is not kindness. That is self-abandonment. True kindness, the kind that transforms relationships and draws the right people to you, is anchored. It is steady, unshakable, and deeply rooted in self-respect. Imagine your kindness as a river. If it flows without boundaries, it can flood, overwhelm, and erode the banks that sustain it. But if it flows within a channel built with care, awareness, and limits, it nourishes everything it touches. That channel, your boundaries, is not a wall. It is a structure that allows your generosity to remain potent, intentional, and safe. You have felt what it is like to give without protection, only to feel depleted, misunderstood, or taken for granted. You have also felt what it is like to give from a place of rootedness. How your care becomes magnetic, inspiring, and deeply fulfilling. Anchored kindness requires courage. Courage to show up even when rejection is possible. Courage to speak your truth without fear of losing someone's approval. Courage to maintain your presence without abandoning your standards. And courage to walk away when the love you offer is not met with respect and reciprocity. That act of being tender yet unshakable, is one of the rarest forms of power in modern dating. When you practice anchored kindness, you send a silent message. I am present, I am caring, I am generous, but I will not compromise my integrity or my self-worth. That clarity changes everything. Those who are ready will rise to meet you, drawn to your steadiness, your courage, and your authenticity. Those who are not ready will drift away, not because you are weak, but because they cannot meet the strength that exists in your softness. You have likely felt the quiet liberation of this truth, the relief of knowing you don't have to shrink to be desirable. You don't have to harden your heart to be respected, and you don't have to negotiate your soul to earn connection. Anchored kindness allows you to love fully, openly, and generously while still honoring yourself. It transforms not only the way you engage with others, but also the way you see yourself. You are not fragile. You are formidable. You are not naive. You are brave. And in a world that often mistakes tenderness for weakness, anchored kindness is your superpower. When you can exist in that space, soft, present, and unwavering, you are no longer at the mercy of anyone else's insecurities. You give freely, love deeply, and protect yourself effortlessly. And in doing so, you teach the world something radical. That true strength lies not in armor, manipulation, or distance, but in courage, presence, and the unshakable power of kindness.